What's up, guys? How's it going? Zach Ginn here, Flip with Rick. I am on an exciting podcast today. We are with Max Jimenez. Did I say that right?
What's up, everyone? Yep, perfect. At least you didn't say
awesome.
gymnast.
No. I'm out here in South Florida. Everyone will kill me if I mess up my days. But I'm excited for this one, guys. I am with Max here. Max is probably one of the top real estate sales guys out there in the industry. Him and his partner Steve run one of the biggest podcasts out there for real estate investors and wholesalers.
Yes,
overall, one of the most legitimate people that I know in this business. I mean, this guy gives out his P&Ls in his own Facebook group. So this guy's not a pretender. He's not a guru.
No.
It's all legitimate. That's all we're trying to do today.
Exactly.
So we're going to give some value out, learn from you, Max. So
awesome, man.
Let's get started. Tell me, how did you get started in real estate? I'm pumped. So how did you get started in real estate investing?
Yeah, so, I shared this story a couple of times, but I always like to share it because, I think real estate itself, the way I learned about real estate and the way I found out about real estate was back in 2006. And so I used to work, this is when, I would say probably late 2005 and 2006, I was working for a company that did credit repair. It was a small outfit. And what we used to do is I used to go out and talk to loan officers, because they were trying to get people approved. Back then it was insane. And so in that same office was another individual named Randy, which I befriended, became friends with him really, tight and stuff. And they were doing flips. They were doing the real estate. And it kind of intrigued me because, they were doing the big boy flips, right? The luxury stuff. And I was like, wow, that's amazing. And so, I would just hear them. I would hear them talk, with how they would buy the properties and then how they would fix them up and, obviously make these huge, spreads, right? And so it intrigued me. And I was thinking to myself, like, how can I get in there? And I never really took the jump. I never really asked them, like, how can I start doing that? Because I was already involved in some sort of way with real estate, but doing the credit repairs. So we would, get clients that would probably be, 20 to 30 to 40, FICO score away from, being approved for the loan they need approved for. And back then it was really easy to get approved for a house, as you know. There wasn't a lot of requirements. So, they were giving houses to people who shouldn't be getting houses. But we didn't do any of that. All we did was, okay, loan officers would come to us and like, hey, this guy needs to be like 20 more points to be able to do this, XYZ. And so the guy I worked with, his name was Sam, he made that happen. I mean, I don't know how he did it, but, I've never really got the back end of that. But I was just a sales guy. I was going out there getting all the clients for that outfit. But as you know, what happened, a year and a half, 2 years later, the crash happened, right? So I didn't stay in that business a long time. And then plus real estate was like, it went down, right? The crash happened. And throughout that, and before I continue, I want to kind of share a little bit. I always been an entrepreneur at heart. I always wanted to own my own business. I just didn't know what, right? I didn't know, I think like most people out there, most of your audience that are listening or just starting out, or maybe just catching a glimpse of this podcast because they're trying to find a direction. That's the way I was. I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do. And so, when the market crashed, I stopped doing that. And I did a lot of different jobs, man, because I worked really hard at my job, but I wasn't really a good employee. Let's just call it that, because at heart, I was an entrepreneur. I wanted to do my own thing. I wanted to have my own business. And so actually the gentleman that I told you about that I befriended, I kept in touch with him. I did keep in touch with him, built the relationship stronger, and we bonded. And then in I want to say somewhere around 2013, 2014, when the market started to kind of spike up a little bit, come back and,
Spike.
Yeah, exactly.
Spike is it's a mountain.
Yeah, it went like, yeah, exactly. So, you saw the trends and I kind of, followed them because of, what I was doing before. So I reached out to him. I said, his name was Randy. He passed away, God rest his soul, but he passed away. But I reached out to him and I said, hey, Randy, what do you think about, us? I know you were doing real estate. I was doing credit repair. and we were involved in some way or form in real estate. What do you think about you and us partnering up and getting into buying some houses? And at this point, I didn't know anything still about real estate, right? I just knew from back then when those guys were doing it, they were making a lot of money, right? They were flipping, they were buying houses and then fixing them up. That's about the extent that I knew. And I think for most people, Zach, if you can correct me, I think that's what most people, when they hear about real estate investing, they think is you got to have the money to buy it and the money to fix it, and then you sell it on the market. Am I wrong on that?
No, most people that learn about real estate, they watch a Grant Cardone video, and then they're like, how do I do what you do? And I'm going to get in it and make $5 million a year. That's how it works.
Yeah. Or some people would say like, there's no way I can do that because I don't have that kind of, funding and all that. So as the time goes by, I'm actually working construction at this time because I didn't know what to do anymore. Like I tried like being my own handyman. I tried my own like handyman business. I was buying bulk stuff and doing yard sales. So I would do yard sales on the weekends. Like I was making a lot of money in the yard sales, but you got to realize I'm in Arizona. There comes to the point where, you can only do that for a couple months before the heat kind of kills that whole business, right? Because nobody's going to be out there 110, 115 degrees, shopping at yard sales. So, about, backing up again, I'm going to keep going forward and backing up around 2000, I want to say 10 or 11. My stepdad's always been in, he always worked construction, commercial plumbing. So they build schools, hospitals, clinics, grocery stores. And at that point, I'm like, man, I don't know what to do anymore. So I just took the jump and I'm like, I need a job. I need to work, right? I need to make money. So I got into that. So from that day, from 2010 or 2011, I think it was, up to that date, 2014, I had worked in construction. I was doing commercial plumbing. And so I got really good at it because within those 4 or 5 years before I quit, 6 year, I was actually promoted to leadman, and I was making like $22 an hour by the time I wanted to leave, right? Getting into real estate, which is pretty good wage for an hourly person, right? I think $22 an hour still pays some bills nowadays. But that's all it does, right? Pay bills. So then, fast forward to what I was saying earlier, I reached out to Randy again in 2014, late 2014, and he's like, yeah, let's start looking. And so I did, right? I started taking action. And this is while I was working, mind you, okay? So on the summertime, I would get up at 4 a.m. in the morning just to be at the office by 5 o'clock. But I would be out early at 1:30, so I had the rest of the day to get to, to get this, like, to work on what we need to do. So what I was doing is I would go on the infamous Craigslist, right? This is when Craigslist was like the thing where you would post all your properties, find buyers. And so this is when it worked, right? This is when it worked. So I would call these, like, there was these listings and it would say, it would have property for sale or investment flip. And so I would call and guess who it was on the line? It was you, it was me on the other side of the line. They're like, okay, so you're interested in the property? What do you have funds? Are you able to close in 7 days? And I'm thinking to myself, like, there's no way I can do this. Like, I can't close in 7 days. I can't do none of that stuff, right? But long and behold, there were wholesalers. That's what they were. The wholesalers were posting these deals on the on Craigslist. I mean, I don't know if you if you ever saw those ads on Craigslist. I don't know if anybody's doing that anymore, by the way. So, go ahead. What's that?
Yeah, Craigslist it only worked for me my first year in real estate, 2017. In my opinion, I feel like Craigslist has really shifted. It shifted from there to Facebook Marketplace. That's really where, in Florida, at least for me, where you could still sell the deals. But Craigslist is terrible.
It is now. I think before there was people who were teaching how to, post ghost properties to get your buyers list and, do things like that. So I was calling, and then, I was doing this on and off, right, while I was working. And then in 2015, I actually ramped it up. I ramped up my self-development. That's one of the key things that changed my mindset. Is a lot of people think that you can put in all the work, which is great. You need to put in the work, but your mindset always has to also evolve with your work as well too. Because if not, you can put as much work as you want and you're not seeing the results. Guess what's going to happen is you're going to give up, right? Because your mindset hasn't caught up with that yet. And especially for someone like me that works construction, has never been around this type of environment, with real estate and everything. But it came to the point where I already saw myself where I wanted to be with this real estate thing. And so that's what really that was the key point. And this is what I want your listeners to focus on, is that you don't just need to work hard. You also need to work hard on yourself, your mindset, because if you're working hard, if you're working hard in your business and yet, or trying to create a business, or trying to get your first deal or your second deal or your third deal, and your mindset is not there, what's going to happen is you're going to give up, so self-development is huge. And this is what I think pushed me through, because, nothing was happening. Right. And I want to say I'm trying to follow these dates while I'm telling the story. I want to say around like anywhere from early to mid 2015. Here's what happened around those dates. So I would call on Craigslist, I was calling around, and then my mother-in-law, she's like, hey, you know what? Why don't you reach out to a real estate agent to help me buy my house? And I'm like, okay, well, can you have her information? So she was in Florida. She moved from Arizona to Florida. So where you're from. And the reason why she did that was, I guess, I don't know if you've ever been to Arizona, but if you never had allergies, you'll have them if you move to Arizona or come to Arizona. It's pretty dry out here. And so I called her, and she's like, you know what? I don't live in Arizona anymore. I'm not in that world anymore. And so at this point, I'm thinking like, man, I don't think this is going to happen. Right. I don't think and everything that I'm doing is I'm running into a roadblock. Like, maybe this is not meant to be. Right. Like, I don't know. So before she hung up though, she says, oh, you know what? She goes, I do remember. Why don't you look up a guy named Sean Terry? I don't know if you're familiar. You obviously know who Sean Terry is, right?
Flip to freedom.
Flip to freedom, baby. So she's like, why don't you look up a guy named Sean Terry? And then I said, man, who's Sean Terry? Like, who the heck Sean Terry, right? And so I didn't do it that night. I think I did it 2 days later. I went to work, and here I'm thinking like, what's the next? And so I went home either after work the next day or the day after. I looked him up and I Googled, and, obviously Sean Terry was everywhere. He had, he had the podcast, and he still is, but he had the podcast. He had all this stuff out there. But I went to his website, and on his website, he had his ebook. And so I downloaded the ebook. It was free. And then, so I read the ebook, kid you not, I read it 3 times that night when I downloaded it. Cause I was trying to understand, like, how is this possible, man? There's no way. Like, what he was saying in that ebook just kind of blew my mind. And I think you can probably attest, right? When, obviously with your dad being in the business a long time too, as well. But, you look at this stuff like, like it's crazy. Right. And so I read it. I read it 3 times. And then I called my friend. I'm like, Randy, I was so excited. Like, you could tell I get excited right now, right? Just sharing the story. And so I called him. I said, Randy, you're not going to believe this. I found about this guy. He's here in Arizona. His ebook, I read it 3 times. Here's what it says. And then his first thing is like, is he legit, or is that legit? Is it real?
Is it legal?
That's what most people think, right? Yeah. Is it legal? I mean, you've probably seen this a lot from people, right? Where people kind of question if it's legal. So what helped is that he was local. So right away, man, I started getting into following him. I downloaded the podcast, and I accelerated I accelerated my learning curve about wholesaling. I mean, I fast forwarded pretty quick because I jumped in there. Like, I literally just put the blinders on, and I turned off all the music and everything, and so I started going to his meetups as well too, because he was locally. And then I went to his event October of 2015, and that was my first real estate event that I went to. Yeah, was there. Unfortunately, my friend didn't. He passed away like I want to say a month before that. But I just kept going. I was like, I need to do it. I need to do this, and so from there. Now this is not over. Okay, sounds like everything's about to turn out really good, right? And you can stop me if you have any questions or anything, by the way, because I keep going.
I want to hear this full story. I want to hear this full story.
Sure. So then October 2015, I go to Flip to Freedom, and I actually did a testimonial for him, ended up on his website and stuff. So, because it was awesome, bro. Like, this thing was great. Like, this was my first real estate event. And what's crazy? It was $99 to go and bring a friend. And I was even worried about paying the $99. And again, it goes back to mindset, right? Like, the mindset of an individual, you have to shift your mindset. And I'm going to keep saying this throughout this because it's very critical, that mindset and work ethic goes hand in hand, right? Like hand in glove. And so then I started, then I learned about bandits. I learned about letters. I learned about, how to reach out to sellers. And so, and from when I went to that event, it started, the holidays started to come up. So I wasn't taking as much action as I should have. So it took me about 11 months to get my first deal from the day that I went to the event. So basically it took me a long time. I almost gave up a couple of times, and my wife's like, no, she goes, you can't give up. You've been putting in, like, you've been doing this. They would help me do the letters, the
Is it
yellow
okay if I
letters.
interrupt you for a second?
Yeah. Go ahead.
There's probably so many people right now, like at that spot, right? Like before you even go any further, there's so many people at that spot right now. They've been trying this for 10 months. They're like,
Yeah.
what? Like, I haven't got my first deal. This is
Right.
where I think 90% of these people are listening. So please go forward. I'm just letting you guys know this Max, he's a killer out there in Phoenix, but like he was at that point too. Like, please listen out. Hear this again. He's at the same exact spot you guys were at.
Yeah. So yeah, man, it was, it did take me 11 months. And then, so here's what's even crazy. So going into the summer of 2015, I'm a person that does everything that I worked on, and every job that I had. Like I said, I was a great worker. Like, that was never my problem, right? So when I was doing the construction thing, like I told you, I moved up pretty quick. I was making what people who had been there 10 years, 12 years, that's how long it took for them to make what I was making. And I did my job with pride. I did it with care. But in summer of 2015, like, my mindset was like teleported to where I wanted to be in real estate. So I started actually hating my job. Like, I didn't want to be there anymore, right? Like, I felt out of place. And it was doing the same thing I'd been doing the last 4 years. It's just my mind has shifted so much and so complete. So again, that's what helped me. But yeah, I was, and this was right around, I want to say June, right? And this was from October 2015. Now we're in June, right? We're in June 2016. So, whatever that is, 9 months or whatever that is. And so, man, I'm frustrated. Nothing's happening. I had tried to, I wanted to quit a couple of times before that. My wife's like, no. Had a couple, my father-in-law encouraged me. She's like, you can't do that. Because I already had my son going out there with me, at night, putting out the bandit signs. And, they would help me do the letters and put the stamps on. So I felt like I couldn't give up, right? I couldn't give up because, first of all, this is what I wanted to do, right? Like, I found my vehicle that I was looking for the longest. And I think what happens with a lot of people is they when they find this vehicle that is real estate, it's not all sunshines and rainbows, man. This is hard work. This is going to take, it's going to break you. Steve's got a thing. Me and Steve always laugh because we got a saying, like, eventually you end up being broken, right? Because it's hard work. People think they're going to come in here and basically, it's going to be all sunshine and rainbow. It's not. And let me tell you something else. The higher you go and the higher you go in level, it gets even harder. You got to work on yourself even harder because you got to maintain what you've already created, right? And, and we all go through that struggle, but we'll share a little bit of that later. Let me get back to the story here. So here's what I did, right? Me being this, I didn't want to be in my job anymore. I felt out of place. My mindset was like, here's where I'm supposed to be. But physically, I was still at that job, correct? And so here's what I did. I told my wife, I'm like, what if I find a job working in real estate so that way I can be around that world, right? And then she's like, well, she was very supportive. She, obviously she's not going to crush me or anything. She's like, well, if that's what you want to do. And I'm like, yeah, probably. I said, because I want to get away from construction so I can be around real estate and around people that are involved in real estate. And check this out. And a lot of people don't know. And if you haven't listened to some other podcasts that I've been, but a lot of people don't know what happens next. So I went on Craigslist, and so I'm applying for jobs, inside sales rep for a real estate company and, all this. And so I applied to one specific post. I responded to one specific post, better said. And so, no, I didn't know who this was. I didn't know who posted it. All it said was, fill this out and then give a call and then give a 30-second description or 1 minute why you should work here. So I filled out all the information. And then what I did is I picked up the phone, I called, and I only gave this speech. I said, hey, this is Max. I'm very interested in the position that you have here on Craigslist. Listen, if you don't like the way I work, you can fire me in 30 days. If you give me an opportunity. Dude, I kid you not, I got a call within about, I would say if it was 2 minutes, it was pretty long. But here's the kicker, man. Guess who was on the other line of that call?
Who?
Steve Train. That's who called me.
Oh, wow.
Can you believe that? Yeah, isn't that insane? Like it was Steve that called me, and I went in, I interviewed with him. And this is going back, right? I'm a big believer, right? Law of attraction. I'm a big believer what you put out, you're basically gonna attract. And I also believe I'm a person of faith as well too, right? So the thing is like, and it was him, and looking back, it's incredible, right? So he says, "Yeah, come in." So we do an interview and stuff, and he hires me. I start July. I think I started in the middle of July. So I started next month. Went back and I quit my job. Did I quit? I was at that point. I got another raise. So I was making closer to like 25 or 26. So it was pretty. It was pretty hard to quit my job. And then I got really tight with the owner of the company, and I went up to him and say, "Hey," we used to call him Nash. I said, "Hey, you know what? I got a great opportunity doing real estate." And then he's like, and he pretty much hit me like, "What if I give you $5 more?" And I'm like, "Oh God, like, why'd you do that to me?" Right? Like, but I already had my mind made up. I already had my mind made up. I wasn't gonna. This is what I wanted to do. I got an opportunity, so I instead of I told him, "Look, Nash," I said, "I don't want to give you an answer now. Let me go home and think about it." So I went home, talked to my wife. That was another hard talk. How are you gonna, it's like they offered me more money. She's like, "How much?" She's like, I said, $5 more an hour. But you know what helped me is the drive from the work the site the work site where I was at to my house was about 45 minutes. So that whole drive home, I was thinking to myself like, yeah, $5 an hour is a lot of money, but why am I not getting it now if I was that good? Do you see what I'm saying? Because my mindset was already like in entrepreneur mode, right? Entrepreneur mode. So when I went to talk to my wife, it was a little bit easier. So long story short, I went and worked for Steve, and I started in, I would say, July, somewhere around there. I still haven't gotten my first deal. While I was working with Steve, I was booking a ton of appointments, dude, like for him. and so and so I was booking a lot of appointments for him and his team. And then in October of 2016, my first deal actually came from somebody that worked with my wife. And this is what I tell everybody, because everybody always wants to, get really fancy with their marketing and do all these things, which is great, right? Once you get to a certain level, you can do that, right? You can, modify your marketing, work on your marketing, get really scientific with it. But when you're first starting out, you need to do whatever it takes, right? Including with your mindset. So one of the things that I always tell people is, how many people know what you do? And they're like, "Oh, well, I haven't told anybody." Well, that's a big problem, because if they have a friend, if they're going to sell a piece of real estate, they're going to sell a piece of lot, they got a friend that's talking about they need to move a property quick, they're not going to think about you because they don't know what you do. And I always tell everybody, you need to tell everybody what you do, no matter if it's at the bank, no matter if it's you're at the grocery store, whatever the case may be, right? People need to know what you do. And so that's how my first deal came. It was somebody that would work with my wife. They had a condo here in Phoenix, and that condo, they owned it for about 2 years. They had gutted it out, thinking they were going to fix it up, thought it was easy. And so we she ended up telling him like, "Hey, well, my husband's buying properties." And so that was my first contract. I messed that thing up so many times. We had to switch title companies, and the buyer actually ended up helping me. He's like, "Hey, yeah," he goes, "They don't do assignments here. We got to switch title companies." He ended up calling me to tell me that. Dude, it was so like, yeah, it was all messed up. But anyways, we closed the deal, ended up making $11,500 on my first deal, and I was still working with Steve. That's all I needed. That was the first check. I came back, and then I told Steve, I'm like, "Hey, Steve, I'm I'm giving you my 2-week notice." And Steve's like, "What?" What's going on? I say, "Well, I'm deciding, this whole thing, this whole journey for me was started so I can be on my own. And, obviously I want to get into real estate myself." And so we kind of went part ways there. We built a really good, strong bond though. And so we parted ways there. And then I want to say, so this was October, or I'm sorry, September, when I got my first deal. 11 months, right, from October of 2015. In September, I got my first deal. I gave my 2 weeks notice, and then Sean Terry had another event, I think in November. So I went to that event, and I met a cash buyer, I guess you would call him, right? Because he had like 50 rentals and a lot of properties in Phoenix, and me and him partnered up. So then all of 2017, I kind of went away from wholesaling. So all of 2017, we did about, I want to say, 16 or 17 flips. just me and him. And so my learning curve kind of just went poof, right? It exploded. I learned about, everything that I need to learn about. But towards the end of 2017, I was kind of feeling like I was at a job again, right? I was like, man, this, because I was negotiating, I was running, make sure that everybody was there where they need to be at. The flooring guys, flipping is not that sexy, you make good money, and but if it's not as sexy as people think as it is, right? So, so basically, around the end of 2017, I was kind of already getting tired, and me and Steve stayed in touch. Steve was watching everything I was doing, posting. And, on my Facebook page, you can see all the way back, I was posting, all the properties we were getting. And so come 2018, I was, me and the gentleman that we were doing all these flips with, we kind of just shook hands like, what, man, I said, this is kind of not going the way I wanted it to go. This direction is not what I wanted to do. So I say, we become very well acquainted. My family knows yours. Let's shake hands. And so that's how we left it, right? Before anything else erupted. So we shook hands. And I was at a Starbucks in March of 2018, and I was getting ready to kind of build out my business plan and stuff. And so I get a call from Steve when I was there at the Starbucks, and he's like, "What are you up to, man? How's it going?" Because we stayed in touch, right? Even though I quit working for him. And I always tell the story like, yeah, he wasn't a good boss. That's why I quit. He cracks up every time. So he's like, "Want to go have lunch?" And so basically we went to have lunch, and, we had about a 2.5 hour lunch, and we kind of discussed back and forth, like, what do you want to do? What are you trying to accomplish? And I asked him these questions. Here's what I don't want to do. And it was basically a strategy session, right? It was just one of those things, let's throw out. And sure enough, man, come April, we partnered up, and, obviously now it's been 2 years and some to the day that we partnered up. And since then, man, it's been just blew up, man. I'm more than grateful. And, we've obviously done a lot, man, since that day that we partnered up. But, again, it goes back, like you could see in that story, there was a lot of places where I could have gave up, right? There was a lot of places where I could have been like, yeah, this ain't for me. I need to go another direction. So, but that's kind of the real estate story. Obviously there's still a lot of stuff in there between what me and Steve have done, but just to get you a little bit of a drop back of how I got to where I'm at today. So.
Wow. It's a lot to unpack there. That's an awesome story.
Yeah.
Wow. So the first question I was going to ask, I ask every single guy, I'm like, who's your guru?
Sure.
Who's the guy that made you drink the Kool-Aid into wholesaling? Because you always get into it through someone. Everyone out in Phoenix either goes to Sean or they see a Cody Sperver Facebook ad. So, but that's awesome. Sean's a great guy. Check him out, Sean Terry. Amazing dude. But so some questions I have for you here is because
sure.
I mean, that's crazy. The one comment I would have to say about hearing your story, I've probably heard it a couple times before, but you're basically the scariest person I would want to hire as an acquisitions person. Because if I hired you, gave you all my secrets, and started getting you on appointments, you're just going to leave and start being like a top dog in my market. So the first question I have is, how do you stop your employees? Because you train them very well. You're one of the top trainers out there. How do you stop them from just going lone wolf, and now you got more competition?
No, that's a great question, and I think it's a struggle for all of us, right? All business owners, especially in wholesaling. Honestly, you really can't, right? There's no way to stop them completely, right? There's no way to stop somebody from going on their own. There's no way to keep people. I mean, I know there's people who do like non-competes and stuff, but Steve and I are not big believers of that. So one thing that we do is we try to create a culture where you get to realize that there's nothing better outside of this culture, right? There's nothing better. So we call that is our golden. I don't know if you ever heard the saying golden handcuffs. There's different people, there's different things that people call golden handcuffs for, but for us is the culture. Like when you work here, like we want to create, we created a culture. Now we created a culture where you want to stay here. You want to be part of this team, because the upside to working here is a lot more than just making making a percentage of an assignment fee. Our guys get first dibs on properties. Our guys, they have the opportunity to build wealth with us. So we created a culture for our guys to where one of our core sayings is that we We want to create a business that creates freedom through real estate for other people, right? And that includes our acquisition guys. So will that stop them completely? It won't, right? Another saying that I like very much is that I can't remember right now. I'm kind of having a brain fart here, but the saying is that, what is it? Let's not train our people because they will leave. So they're saying, what if we don't train them and they stay? See, so now you're going to have a bigger problem because now you're the one that's going to be doing everything. You're the one that's going to be having to step in every single time. So we're a big believer in that. Steve and I don't hold anything back. And here's the reason why. Okay, we're going to be here no matter what. We're very confident, Steve and I, in that aspect of it. Right? We've had people who've come and went. We know, and this is one of my models. Like, if you work with me, like, even if it's one day or even if it's 1 year, you're always going to leave better than what you came, right? But yeah, it's always a challenge, man. And so one of the things that we did to combat that a little bit is we hired an inside recruiter. I know not everybody can do that, but our recruiting director, he takes care of making sure that, we have a bench. But going back to your question, I think it's difficult, man. Honestly, there's no way to stop it, but you got to find those golden handcuffs. What can you provide to build a culture, to help them, elevate, not just you yourself, right? You got to elevate the team as well.
Yeah. I mean, it's always a struggle. I do agree. I just always like to hear someone's philosophies on it, but I think you have a pretty good one.
Yeah.
The other thing I want to ask you too is something that I stumbled upon when I started out in real estate is, I figured out first thing is acquisitions marketing is the lifeline of getting leads, but
correct.
Acquisitions has to be, and sales probably the top thing on getting deals. So how did you become one of the best closers out there? I saw your nickname is, I'm going to butcher this, El Cerador. I can't say it. Okay.
It's okay. You gotta roll your R's.
The closer.
Yeah.
The closer.
Yep.
So how did you become that? Like, how did you make those skills?
Well, it comes down. I always tell people, like, you have to keep working at your craft, right? I always think about it this way, like, great baseball players, great football players, if we want to talk about sports, or great anybody that's great at anything, is they need to work at their craft, right? If you're a baseball person, if you got somebody that's a slugger, they're going to struggle a little bit, right? So then they hire a coach, or they have a coach, right? Then they'll say, then the coach will come back, hey, you're dropping your hands too low. You got to pick up your hands a little bit, right? Hey, your hands are coming in too close to your chest. Make sure that you hold your hands out. So those are the little details that are going to get that person the home runs. Those are the little details that's going to get that person, the bat, what is it? Runs batted in, RBIs, right? That are going to help them. So I think for me was, obviously I hired a coach, man. I hired a sales coach, because you can learn a lot of stuff through books and, through podcasts and things like that. But what definitely changed me is hiring that coach. And I'm not saying this just because we do sales training, right? A coach will, just like I mentioned the example with baseball, right? A coach will tell you, when I first started going into sales training, mastery sales training, I would say, like, hey, because our coach name is Brad, I would say, hey, Brad, I went to an appointment. Here's what happened, and then here's what I told the seller. And he would call me out in front of the class, like, but you didn't say it like that, correct? That's not how you said it. And I'm like, no, Brad, that's how I said it. I said, man, I feel bad for you. Like, he would call me out, like, I feel bad for you and the seller. But that helped a lot. But working on the craft, one of the things that one of our models here internally is that we work just as much on our business as we do on ourselves. You know what I'm saying? You gotta keep working on yourself. It's an everyday thing. You gotta work on, whether that's sales skills, whether that's self-development, whether that's being a better father, whatever the case may be. And so that's what's helped me. I didn't put that nickname on my own. I didn't come up with that. Somebody else did. So, okay. I'm not a self-proclaimed the best closer, right? Somebody else said, hey, because you close so well, and so here's your new nickname, right? And so basically, I think that's what's helped me to become to the level that I am now. Yeah, those things. So sorry, I went on a long answer there.
No problem. One secret I was talking to your partner with probably when he won the podcast was, before you started, when I was here in 2017, there was no Max or like podcast to help me with my sales. There was no guy doing that. John Martinez was like just starting.
Right.
I mean, the one thing I learned is I just try to copy other salesmen, like a Jordan Belfort straight line system, Sandler Training, like just learning from others. So I know you guys are big on Sandler Training. So how well has looking at someone who's not specifically real estate wholesaling and acquisitions, another salesperson, helped you with your business?
So talking about Sandler specific, I think is the approach, right? What it is basically, it's the judo of sales. That's what our coach calls it, right? Because basically what the thing with Sandler is that it's not a hard, what do I say, your traditional like sleazy salesperson, if you want to call it, right? Most people think of salespeople that way. Those are great guys, by the way, you mentioned. There's a lot of things you can take away from Jordan Belfort. There's a lot of things you can take away from Chris Voss. We use some of Chris Voss stuff. We use, little bits and pieces here. But the reason why Sandler has made a huge difference for us is just the approach, right? Going back to my comment is the judo, right? So, what we do is that we're going to use whatever you tell us. We're going to use the same, your approach, the way you come at us. We're just going to take that energy and then have you basically sell us on why we should. That's the approach that Sandler takes, is we're going to have you, everything information, we're not going to ask for the order. You're going to give us the order. We're going to get strategic through questioning, and everything that you throw at us, we're going to actually turn that into where you're selling us for why we should do business with you. Right. And so that's what we liked about Sandler. It's a very different approach than compared to like, other ways or traditional ways as to, when you come in, well, you know what, this is going to cost, X amount. Yeah, I can give you X amount for your property. I can close in 10 days. Where now it's like, okay, so what do you think this is going to cost if I give you a Home Depot card? If you went to Home Depot, right? So that's a strategic question. Okay, so it seems like you want to be out of here maybe in 90 days. Is that what I'm hearing by the end of the year? No, of course not. I need to sell this thing in 30 days, right? So now you're telling me what I should be doing, right? Okay, and so just off the record, I know the night before that, most people talk about a price they want. Just off the record, what is that price that you're asking, for the property? So we're using certain tools that Sandler. That's the difference. Sandler kind of takes a whole different approach to the selling cycle. And we use basically like judo, right? In judo, you use other person's force to bring them down. Yep.
Yeah. So I love Sandler. The funniest thing is like, I only learned about him like the past 8 months. And
right.
Throughout my 3 years of real estate wholesaling, I kind of made my own philosophy from just watching the most successful people. And then I saw Sandler's 100 rules, 50 rules.
Yeah. The 49 rules of Sandler. Yeah.
I started reading it. I'm like, I use all this. If I learned this when I was like 17 doing this, it would have it took me probably 3 appointments to figure out, don't overtalk. Don't spill your candy out. Right. I was like, I read that. I'm like, all my issues are just listed right here. So guys, if you're listening, if you're new, check Sandler Training out. Like, it's probably one of the best things you can do. It's really aligned with my philosophy.
Right. I'll share with you a story that our coach always tells about a sales guy, right? So this is a different what is it called? Industry. So this new sales guy gets hired, right? He gets hired for a store like Home Depot. It's not Home Depot, but it's a store like Home Depot. He hasn't been trained yet. Okay. He hasn't been trained yet. So he comes in and then, he handles the ACs, right? The ACs and heaters. And so a couple comes in and they're like, hey, we're looking for a heater. He hasn't been trained yet. Okay. So we're looking for a heater. Oh, okay. So, well, how big's your house? Like, what do you have right now? So, right. He's asking questions. Okay. Here's what we have. Okay. You know what? I think we have some of those. Let me kind of look over here. And then, okay. So, the one you have right now, like how many, like how, can you tell me a little more about like the size and the way it looks? So this is called a dummy curve, which you can do, but he's genuinely doing it, right? Because he doesn't know. Yeah. He doesn't know about the units. He doesn't know about BTUs. He doesn't know about square footage. So then they ask him like, well, what's the price on that one? You know what? I don't even know. Give me 1 second here. Let me look down. And he kind of kneels down, right? And he looks at the price. He goes, well, it looks like the price, but that's probably too expensive for you guys, right? That sounds like someone that's trying to not get a sell, right? And they're like, oh no, that's perfect. Why would that be too expensive for us? We'll take that one. So then they buy, right? He sells a lot of units. A week later, he goes and gets trained, right? He gets trained about BTUs. He gets trained about how many square footage the units will cover. He gets trained about, pricing. And then guess what? So he comes back to the store. And then here he is again, right? He gets another customer that comes in. Yeah, we're here to look for AC unit. Okay, great. Which one? What? We have the best AC units. Train is the best. This one blows at X amount. This one is 12. Will cover 1,300 square feet. This is top of the line, and it only costs $2,000. Would you like the unit? No, I don't want the unit. You see the difference?
Yep.
So that's kind of an example of Sandler in a nutshell, right? Like, because there is a tactic that you can use, which is called dummy curving them. We're like, I don't know if I can do that. If I could, what happens next? So things like that. But I just thought I'd give you that example because that's really what happens, right? Like, in our business, well, how quickly can you close? I can close I can close for you in 10 days. And, or yeah, I'll pay all cash right away. We're like you said earlier, we're spilling our candy.
Yeah. I mean, the reason why I'm trying to get so into this, because it's funny because I sometimes complain in my market because I do a lot of direct mail. Every direct mail piece for my average deal I get, they got about 8 other postcards, and it's like there's about 5-6 appointments when I got to go and try to close the deal. And then I hear someone complain like, "Oh, Port St. Lucie's so tough." I'm like, "Go to Phoenix, boy." Bro, go to Phoenix. And it's even worse over there. And it's like you're doing very well. I mean, it's guru galore out there, but it's just interesting seeing your approach and how you do well when there's so many other competition out there. I get comments everywhere saying, I'm in the craziest market ever. I'm in Atlanta, but it's just it's funny to see how you're finding success with it. And you're not a crazy you're not this marketing genius. You're more of an acquisitions guy. So
can
you tell me a little bit about how you're finding deals now here in 2020?
Sure. So it has definitely gotten very difficult, especially in the last 2 months, right? I think there was probably, I want to say, a couple of weeks where we stopped marketing in Phoenix and we shifted into Tucson, which is another market. Even though we had deals in Phoenix that were still going on, because we also do flips and we'll do some hotels. But we just got back to Phoenix. We actually last week, so we started marketing again. So cold calling is still working well. That's one of the things that we never stopped doing. Cold calling. Texting has really kind of died down a little bit with all the rules and regulation and everybody putting in their opt-out message at the end of each text. That's gotten a little difficult. But cold calling, we do also do a little bit of PPC. And then JV has really worked really well for us. That's called joint venture for those that don't know what that is. Joining up with other local wholesalers in our market. We're thinking about excuse me. We're thinking about direct mail because I know direct mail that's always worked. Even when I first started, direct mail. That's what was big back then, 2015. Direct mail, the yellow letters and stuff. So we're thinking about that. It's a little bit more expensive for people that want to do at a mass scale, I think, but it works very well. And I think, for example, but the way it's been the most marketing channel has been working the greatest has been cold calling. So we have cold callers overseas that are doing a lot of cold calling. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, it's just I have a question here. What's PPC? Again, I feel like us real estate wholesalers, we speak a third language. It's like JV, HOA, PPC.
Right.
Can you explain PPC?
Sure. So PPC is just pay per click. So basically, it's you pay to run an ad. You pay to run your website on Google, and when someone searches "sell my house fast" AZ. So depending on how much you spend, your link to your website, the link to the website will pop up, and then when someone clicks on it, you're paying per click. So every click that someone clicks on it, every click that when someone goes on your website, you're going to pay for it, and it all varies just depending on how many AdWords you're running, how many I mean, there could be anywhere from $100 to $200 per click, just depending on what market you're in.
Okay, cool. So guys, I'm about to let the audience ask a bunch of questions here for Max, but I'm just letting you know this. So get your questions ready. Go comment them below, Facebook, YouTube, anywhere. I got to ask you a fun question. I always love asking this question. I've never got the same one. Maybe you, Steve, have dealt with one, but What is your craziest real estate story?
Craziest real estate story, man. So I do have one actually. We're still going through it.
Everyone has
so th-
one.
yeah. But last year we contracted a property. It was a townhome here in Phoenix. And so the guy, there was some contingencies on the contract. And so basically, and this is kind of, I don't know if it's crazy, but it's like kind of one of the worst deals ever. So people can know bad deals happen, right? It's not all
Mhm.
sunshine and rainbows. There was a contingency in the contract where the guy wouldn't sell and wouldn't sell without finding a new place, right? So what we did is we put all our efforts to find him a new place where he can go next. And so we found him. We found him a new place where he can go. The guy went and checked it out. He's like, yeah, this is the place. Blah blah. So we ended up buying it. We ended up buying it and paying 6 months in advance. So we paid like $15,000. Obviously, we had everything already. The paperwork. All the addendums and stuff. Everything was signed before we did that. And so we were getting ready to close, and then obviously what happened is for some reason, I don't know, somebody either got in his ear or something happened where he didn't want to sell anymore. Isn't that crazy? Like after all the work that we did, everything that we did for him, we spent a lot of money, finding him a new place. And so he ended up not wanting to sell. And as you know, like you don't have that option, right? You cannot just decide one day not to sell. And especially with everything, the time, the money, and everything that we have invested in you, like that's not, we're not going to allow that to happen. So I think that's one of our crazier deals. But I'll give you an example of another one. This one's actually cool. I don't know if it's crazy, but just to add to this segment of your show is we actually are closing. Matter of fact, today I'm supposed to be going to signing right after this podcast. We're closing on we're good. The title company's right next door, so we're good. I could just walk over there. So today we're closing on one where we bought there was 4 siblings, right? 4 siblings. We bought 3 of them out last year. We bought the 3 siblings out last year. We paid them $7,000 each. So we paid a total of $21,000 for their share. So and this is a little bit, I'm going to have a story one day. I'll actually, as soon as we're closed and everything, I'm going to put a story out on this deal because these deals are out there. I know you guys do some crazy deals with probate and stuff like that. So this was an inheritance and everybody got their share. So it's called what's that word? A joint tenancy, proprietorship or something like that. I can't remember the exact term.
So 3 heirs.
Yeah, it's 4. There's 4. So
okay.
The 4. So there's 3, and then one of them lives at the property that they inherited from the parents. And so the 3 didn't want anything to do with the property. They were done. They're like, this is it. I'm not going. We got our lives. All we want to do is sell. The 4 one didn't. Gave them a hard time. And they didn't know that they could sell their shares. They didn't know that they can do that. So if you guys are listening out there, make sure that if you're dealing with siblings or you're dealing with anything that's due with inheritance, just make sure that you look into that. But it's got to be titled a certain way. And so we bought 3 of them out last year. The 4th one gave us the hardest time, and we ended up settling. We ended up paying them $40,000. But man, this is ongoing. I think it's going to be 11 months now or 10 months or something. But check this out. So we paid the other ones $21,000, and then we settled on $40,000 to buy him out his last share. And so we're total into it for about $60,000. But what's crazy about it, it's a huge lot in like this very nice area in Phoenix, and we're gonna split the lot. There's an empty side, and then there's a side that's gonna have the house. So the empty lot we're gonna sell for 100. And then the one for the side of the house, we're actually going to rehab it and sell that one for, I want to say like 220 or 225. So that's been the craziest deal that we've ever done. And that's going to be the biggest deal that we've ever done, man.
Man, I mean, Rick has some crazy probate like stories from just 17 years in the business. I mean, think about 4 years, double that. And they all speak Haitian Creole, and like you get it. Oh my gosh. Probate stories, I can go on forever, but that's insane. I think something really important people really need to know here is I've been in this situation probably 4 times this year where you get a deal. It's a disgusting, like I'm making like 50, 60,000, like, and this, you get the contract signed and the seller's like, I don't want to close anymore. Like,
Mm-hmm.
did you sign an affidavit? Like, how did you protect yourself with that? Can you explain what you do in those situations?
Yeah, so there's a couple ways that you can protect yourself, right? You know, for us, we either do a memorandum or list pendants. You know, we'll send out a letter
Yep.
to them. The thing is, here in Arizona, there it's really tricky with memorandums. So if the language is not in your agreement, you got to have. I don't know if in Florida is the same way, but it has to be in your purchase contract. There's got to be some type of language that describes that you're allowed to record a memorandum, basically cloud title, right? If it doesn't work out. I know there's guys out there that cloud title on everything. We don't typically do that unless we kind of feel that things are going funny or sideways, but it's in our contract. So it's in our contract that we're okay to do that. We got yelled at by our attorney. So basically, it's hard to it's hard to like. He's like, hey, you can't be doing that unless it's in the contract, right? And I'm like, do what? He's like, you can't record memorandums. It's gotta be in your contract. So we change that up. And that's kind of how we protect ourselves, right? And we let the sellers know, like, look, unfortunately, like backing out. And like I said, we don't do this to every single seller because it's situational based, right? Like it could be a situation where, you know, maybe if it's like somebody that really couldn't move forward with the sale, then we'll look at it and then make our decision accordingly.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, that's always smart. We're a little different in Florida, but I mean, it's just judicial versus non-judicial.
Right.
But yeah, let's have the people ask some questions here. Let's try to help everyone out here. So let's see. What's up, Clinton? What's up? Eric wants to know, I'm 17 years old and I'm trying to get into wholesale real estate. Any tips how to get started?
Yeah, I would say, I don't know what market you're in, but man, there's some 17-year-olds out there that are crushing it. You know, I wish I got into this when I was 17 years old. But I think for the most part, though, is that you need to get around, you know, legitimate people who are in the business and learn from them. Now, don't just reach out to them and, hey, can I pick your brain? That's the worst thing you can do, is you need to reach out to those people and say, hey, how can I provide value? You know, I'm driving for dollars, I'm bringing these leads, or, you know, I'm doing this, door knocking, whatever the case may be. But find those people that you know that are legitimately doing good things in the business, and network with them and work with them, so that way you can learn the business. So that way you don't feel overwhelmed. Plus, you're 17, you're not going to be able to sign contracts for the most part. So you know, you're either going to have a family member, or if you do find that individual that you can trust, you know, that basically can work with you. But I say build your network, man. Reach out to people. I mean, I think that would be the best thing.
Boom. So Isaac says, what's up, Isaac? Avila says, my guy Max. Sweet.
Isaac, what's up, brother? Glad you joined.
All right, we got Ruben on also.
Yep, Ruben's my guy.
Sweet. So let's see. So Elijah asks, hey guys, do you guys buy a list and market that list every month, or every month you buy a new list? I do not want to keep buying the same list. What are your routine on a month-to-month basis?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we break down our list into two segments. We do our general larger list, right? Large list, and then we have our small niche list. So with our large list, we only pull those once a month. And then what we do is we use PropStream to pull lists. There's also Batch too as well. You can pull lists from there now. But for the most part, we've been using PropStream for a while. And so what we do is we compare. So let's say that we pull a high equity list and it's got like, you know, 15,000 or 20,000. So, and that's going to be our list that's going to, you know, maintain us, right? That's your list that's going to maintain you. When that time again comes to pull that list again, what's great about PropStream is you can determine how many more new ones came out. So you don't have to pull that same 20 or 15. You can pull that next 2,000 or 3,000. And then you want to re-hit, though, that same 20. You know what I'm saying? You don't have to keep pulling that same 20, but you want to re-hit those same people, you know, and then add those 3,000 or 2,000. Now, for our smaller lists, now those you can go ham. Like, you know, you can hit those every 2 weeks, every 2 weeks, as long as you haven't made contact. You know, you got people that, you know, that if you have people that you haven't spoken with. But if you got smaller niche lists like probates, I mean, I would hit those every week. You got, you know, HOA liens, you know, properties with liens. You know, those are your niche lists that you can break down. But But for the most part, it sounds like you're asking on a month-to-month basis. We pull large absentee lists. We pull high equity because those are your lists that are going to maintain you throughout the month, because there's just so many numbers that you can pull. And I see what you're running into. Yep.
Boom. So I think we got some other people, Sacramento. They're all
Sure.
giving us support. Eric wants to know, is your on bird dogging?
Bird dogging. I mean, this goes back to what I was saying earlier, right? I think, you find someone that you can network with. I never did any bird dogging, but it depends on your situation. I mean, is that the only thing you can do, where you can grab addresses and then send them to somebody? Then, by all means, just make sure that you have some type of, always, no matter what you do, just like I told the other guy that was asking, what I do when I'm 17, always have something, an upfront agreement with people, right? Whether that is that you're going to send them addresses. But if that's all you can do for now, again, you need to find somebody that's legitimately in the business, depending on your market, Eric, because you don't want to be sending these lists to people who are not going to do anything with it. And if they do something with it, they're not going to pay you. You have to be careful with that. But if that's all you can do for now, man, go for it.
All right. So can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. I think you froze a little bit.
Yeah, I think my thing's frozen.
Okay, cool.
My thing's frozen, so I think we keep going.
Okay, cool.
If my thing ever freezes on me, just let me know. But yeah, so my last two questions, I guess I could do with a frozen screen, whatever.
Right.
You've spent over 6 figures in personal development for yourself, you and your partner combined. Is that correct?
Yeah. Yep. Like I said, definitely. Mm-hmm.
So I don't want to spend, a lot of these people don't want to spend 100,000 in personal development. Can you tell us what is the number one takeaway and secret you've gotten from spending all that money?
Yeah, I mean, as far as a secret, I think it comes down to, what's that word? I don't see it as an expense. I see it as an investment. Before I met Steve, for me, you remember the story for the $99, right? Like, I was worried about that. Paying $99 for, for going to a real estate. That was the mindset, right, at that time. But one of the things that I learned, the money that I've spent on self-development, the money that I spent on growing, and again, not everybody needs to, or eventually you're going to have to, because like I said earlier, every single level that you go up, it doesn't get easier. It gets a lot harder because you have to maintain, you have to get better. You got people who depend on you. But the secret is that what I learned is, like, man, it's not an expense. Everything's an investment that you do in your life, right? And for the most part, when you start looking at it that way, spending money on self-development, spending money on learning, it becomes much easier. But it has to be a mind shift change, right? You got to look at it as that. Yep.
Okay. And so if I looked at a pie chart of your marketing right now for 2020, I mean,
Sure.
if I see cold calling, direct mail, SMS, door knocking, all that fun stuff. I mean, what are your top marketing channels right now to find your deals?
Cold calling. Cold calling is top of the list. Yep. Cold calling is on top of the list. And then the second one next to that is going to be PPC, and then JV deals that we do with people that bring us deals. Yeah.
Okay.
Those are the top three right now. But we don't do direct. So we don't, Zach, we don't do direct mail right now. We're looking into it.
Okay.
So we're looking into direct mail, and we're looking into TV. So those two things.
TV, wow.
We'll see how that goes.
I'm interested on that one. But
yeah.
Okay, cool. So let me get one more question from the audience here, and then I'll get one to wrap everything up. KPI question: how many calls does it take for one caller to get one contract?
Man, that's a loaded question, bro.
It's a loaded question.
Yeah, I think it depends on your market. I mean, it depends on, so a couple factors here. Let's back up. Depends on your market. Depends the list you're calling. I will tell you this: the more niche list that you get. So Zach, you can attest to this, right? If you pull a probate list, if you pull a real niche probate list that's that's fresh, it's going to take a lot less calls than a high equity list, right? Because I'll tell you, with high equity lists, those guys, oh, you're gonna have to. I'm gonna die here. The only way I'm coming out of this house is vertical or horizontal, which we know what that means, right? So, Seth, it just depends, man. Honestly, there's not like a perfect question, or sorry, a perfect answer for that. It all depends on your market. It all depends on your list, especially right now in this market. I mean, I don't know for you, Zach, but it's getting more and more saturated and a lot harder. More calls need to be made. So let me tell you this, Seth. If you haven't gotten your first deal yet, thousands of calls. I'm not going to tell you hundreds because I want you to put the work in.
I'm telling you right now, you have to be in the mindset. This is my mindset, and I've been in this bit. I'm not saying I've been in this business a while, but in over 3.5, 4 years, I have done situations where I cold called the person my first year. They said, "I'm never selling this until I die." 2 years later, I end up buying that house from the heirs.
Right.
I have it recorded. Like I have it. Like you have to, guys. You have to be in that mindset. Like if you're not going to sell it to me now, I'm getting it through probate. Like I'm buying every single house in my city, in my county.
Right.
I mean,
Nice.
It's amazing. One last question. I ask everyone this. This is a pretty personal question for me because this is how I got started. So I started 17, like $300 in my bank account. If let's say, Max, you're 17 years old again, living in Phoenix, Arizona. You just graduated high school, no kids, no wife, no anything. You had $300 in your bank account. How would you become the next Max Jimenez?
Ooh, that's a loaded one. No, I love that. I love that question because I always get asked, like, if you were able to start this over again with everything you knew, but this is only with $300. That's tough. Not knowing anything about real estate or anything that I know now.
With the knowledge you have now. I mean, you have sons right now. Like, if you're in their shoes too, like what would you do?
Well, I mean, first of all, I would invest in self-development, right? I think that's huge. You need to learn. And self-development is not just like mindset stuff, right? Self-development can be in wholesaling, right? Self-development can, learn the basics, man. Honestly, I see a lot of people get into this business, and you see this in a lot of the real estate groups, is somebody answers the questions or they do a really great video, but most people don't take the time to even learn the basics. And not only learn the basics, but what I would do is learn the basics and then don't try to, eat the whole elephant. Take 2 bites and then go apply it. That's what I would do, right? There's so much information right now available on YouTube. If I had that when I was 17, like say now I'm 17 and I'm starting over and I got 300, there's so much information on YouTube that it's insane. The thing is that I would want to go out and I would want to learn the basics of the business that I want to get into, especially right now that we're talking about wholesaling. What is a contract? How to fill out a contract? Learn those things because those things matter. Not saying that you have to know everything because I didn't when I got my first deal. I had the buyer guide me. But if I can go back and learn some of those things, and then the second biggest thing is network. You need to network. You need to get around people that are doing what you want to do because that's the fastest way you're going to learn, especially if you can provide value. It's something that I didn't do when I first started because it wasn't there, right? But definitely those 2 things is learning the basics of the business and without really spending too much money on marketing yet because you only got $300. And then I would say network, man. I would say network has to be like probably up there, network with other people.
Oh, also another thing I'll be included is if you're starting out, you should probably check out the Real Estate Disruptors podcast. Start from the beginning, go through the entire thing. If you listen to every single podcast in there and you haven't made 6 figures, I would be shocked. I mean,
bro,
there's so much value
a gold
in
mine there. Yeah, there's a gold mine there. Like actually, what's funny about that is we've had people message us and said they've gotten their first deal or they're working on their second and third deal just from the podcast. But I would say, yeah, definitely. I'm glad you brought that up, Zach. The Real Estate Disruptors podcast has so many people with different stories and different backgrounds. And these are actually real people because, they are doing the business. Yep.
All right. And guys, if you want more info from Max and whatever he does, from what he does, it's disruptors.com, right?
Yep, disruptors.com.
I'm not going to ask you how much money you paid for that domain because that's a good one.
Yeah, I know.
It's a good one.
It is.
But
yeah. Yep.
So, yeah, that's it, guys. Max is probably one of the best sales trainers out there for real estate wholesaling. If you ever want to get with him and Steve about it, go check him out. His handle's below, Real Max Jimenez. Check him out. Always value he gives you. I just love what they do and their mission. So I really appreciate you coming on. Is there any parting thoughts you have for the audience today before we hop off?
Yeah, I would say don't give up, man. That's one of the things. Don't give up. Whatever part of your journey you're in right now, one of the things that you got to realize that everything is a test, right? And I think that the more you work on yourself to be able to kind of get over these challenges, is you're going to get better. So don't give up. Work on yourself, daily. Build routines, and I would say put out good energy, because like big believer in law of attraction, right? Kind of what happened with me. But just don't give up. This is part of the challenge. I would say challenge and failure is part of the journey. If you try to exclude those things, you're not going to make it.
Wow. Boom. Thank you guys so much. Check us out on Instagram at Flip with Rick, at Real Max Jimenez. I'll see you next week, guys. Thanks.